The chamber of the Galactic Athletic Council was a marvel of architectural democracy. 63 species had contributed to its design, resulting in a space that was simultaneously beautiful and utterly bizarre. Crystalline spires jutted from walls designed for species that experienced vision in the ultraviolet spectrum. The floor shifted between solid and liquid states to accommodate both walkers and swimmers. Gravity plates created zones ranging from 03 to 24G. Ambassador Wei Chen sat in humanity's modest delegation box, trying not to feel overwhelmed. 3 years. That's how long humanity had been part of this grand galactic community, and she still felt like a freshman at a university founded before her planet had cooled. The Virin representative, High Coordinator Jexthal, stood at the central podium. His species was impressive by any standard, 3 meters of chitinous excellence, supported by 8 hydraulic legs that could launch him 10 meters from a standing position. His carapace gleamed with ceremonial oils, refracting light in patterns that spelled out his 17 titles and achievements. Esteemed colleagues, Jexthal's voice resonated through the chamber's translation matrix. I come before you today with a proposal that will unite our diverse species in friendly competition, showcase our unique biological gifts, and strengthen the bonds of our galactic community. Wei Chen felt her stomach tighten. In her experience, whenever someone said they wanted to strengthen bonds, they usually wanted something. I propose, Jexthal continued, spreading all 4 of his arms wide in a gesture of magnanimity, the first multi-species marathon in galactic history. The chamber erupted in chatter. Wei Chen turned to Dr. Marcus Torres, her xenobiology advisor, who had gone very still in his seat. Marcus, she whispered, why are you smiling like that? Because, Marcus replied, his grin growing wider, they have no idea what they've just done. The soaring delegation, avian creatures with hollow bones and wings that had been evolutionarily repurposed into powerful running limbs, chirped their enthusiasm. The Korthax, 4-armed digitigrades known for their explosive speed, beat their chests in approval. The Metharin amphibious beings from a heavy-gravity water world bubbled their assent through their breathing apparatus. Species after species voiced their support, a marathon, a true test of athletic prowess, a chance to demonstrate physical superiority in a controlled, civilized manner. Wei Chen raised her hand. A point of clarification, High Coordinator. When you say marathon, you mean the traditional Earth distance of 195 kilometers. Indeed, Jexthal's mandibles clicked with pleasure. We have studied your species' athletic traditions with great interest, such a quaint custom, running such distances. We thought it would be amusing to see how the galaxy's species compare on a level playing field. The Gravath representative, a being that looked like a mobile boulder with legs, rumbled with laughter. No offense to our human friends, but I believe we'll see that bigger is better when it comes to sustained exertion. Wei Chen smiled politely. None taken, we accept your challenge. After the session ended, Marcus practically danced back to the human delegation offices. They challenged us to a marathon, he kept repeating. An actual marathon, in heat. Oh my God, Wei, do you understand what this means? Enlighten me. Marcus pulled up his datapad, fingers flying across the holographic interface. Okay, so here's the thing about humans that the rest of the galaxy doesn't understand yet. We're not impressive, not at first glance. We're not the fastest, hell, we're not even close. We're not the strongest. We don't have claws or armor or venom or any of the cool biological weapons most species evolved. I'm aware of our deficiencies, Marcus, but, he held up a finger, we have something unique, something terrifying. We are the galaxy's premier endurance predators. He pulled up a compilation of Earth's animals. On Earth, we're not special. A cheetah can run 120 kph. We top out at maybe 45 for the fastest humans, and that's only for seconds. A horse can maintain 88 kph for short distances. An antelope can hit 95 kph. And yet humans hunted all of them, Wei Chen said, beginning to understand. Exactly, we hunted them by running them to death, literally. It's called persistence hunting, and humans are the only species on Earth that does it regularly. We would pick an antelope and just follow it. For hours, sometimes days, the antelope would sprint away and we'd jog after it. It would rest, we'd keep coming. It would run again, we'd keep jogging. Eventually, the antelope would collapse from heat exhaustion because it couldn't cool down while running. Marcus pulled up comparative biology charts. We have 2 million sweat glands. We can dump heat while running at full exertion in temperatures that would kill most species. Our Achilles tendon acts like a spring, storing and returning 80% of the energy from each footfall. Our breathing is decoupled from our gait. We can breathe independently of our stride, unlike quadrupeds whose breathing is linked to their galloping rhythm. And the aliens don't know this. Why would they? Most species evolved to either be ambush predators or to escape in short bursts. The concept of chasing something for hours is insane to them. The Virin can sprint at incredible speeds, but they overheat in minutes. The Soaring have hollow bones for weight reduction, great for short bursts, terrible for sustained impact. The Korthax have massive fast-twitch muscles that generate enormous heat. Wei Chen leaned back in her chair. So you're saying? I'm saying that humanity just got challenged to the one athletic competition we're designed to dominate. It's like if we challenged the Soaring to a flying competition or the Aquarel to a swimming race. Who should we send? Marcus was already pulling up files. I've got a list, but if we really want to make a statement, I know exactly who to call. Hash the selection. Jenny Torres had been in the middle of a training run through the Ngong Hills when her comm unit buzzed. She almost ignored it. She was at kilometer 87 of a planned 100-kilometer run, and she was in the zone, that perfect state where the running became meditation, where her body moved without thought and her mind floated free. But the comm code was flagged as urgent government contact, so she slowed to a walk and took the call. 20 minutes later, she sat on a rock, watching the Kenyan sunset, trying to process what she'd just been told. The galaxy wanted to race humans in a marathon. She started laughing. Yuki Tanaka received his call while navigating a particularly technical section of the Japan Alps. He was 130 kilometers into a 160-kilometer mountain ultra, dancing across rocks slick with morning dew, his feet finding purchase on surfaces that looked impossible. When his coach explained the situation, Yuki's response was immediate. I'm in. When do we leave? The human delegation selected 12 runners total. Jenny and Yuki were the primaries, but the team included ultramarathon specialists, heat acclimatization experts, and athletes who had run across deserts, through jungles, and over mountain ranges that would make the Kira's 7-course look tame. The galactic media got their first look at humanity's team during the pre-race press conference. The reaction was not encouraging. The press conference, the media amphitheater on Kira's 7 was packed with reporters from every member species. Holographic cameras floated through the air like metallic butterflies, capturing every angle. Jexthal stood at the main podium, his 8 legs perfectly positioned, his carapace polished to mirror brightness. Next to him stood Kriya of the Soaring, her wing arms folded with casual confidence, her hollow bones barely making a sound as she shifted her weight. We are honored to compete, Jexthal announced, his voice carrying the absolute certainty of someone who had never lost. The Virin have won every athletic competition in our sector for the past 40 cycles. We look forward to extending that record. Kriya's chirp was translated as confident agreement. The Soaring have studied this marathon distance. It is quaint that humans find 42 kilometers challenging. For us, it will be a pleasant morning sprint. Then the humans took the podium. Jenny Torres stood 165 centimeters tall and weighed 52 kilograms. Next to the 3-meter Jexthal, she looked like a child. Her clothing was simple, running shorts and a technical shirt that read Eitan Marathon Club in faded letters. The camera drones zoomed in, and the galactic audience saw something that confused them. She was already sweating, and the race was still 2 days away. Is she leaking? A Korthax reporter asked, mandibles clicking with concern. The human appears to be malfunctioning, another noted. A brave silicate journalist asked the question directly. Competitor Torres, are you experiencing a medical emergency? Your epidermis is secreting fluid. Jenny smiled. No, this is normal. It's called sweating. We use it to regulate temperature, but the race hasn't begun. I was warming up just a light 20 kilometers. The amphitheater went silent. You ran 20 kilometers as a warm-up. Jexthal's mandibles worked soundlessly. For a warm-up. It's a light day, Yuki added helpfully. Yesterday we did 40. A Gravath sports analyst rumbled onto the broadcast. Let me understand this correctly. You ran a distance nearly equal to the full marathon, as preparation, the day before the actual marathon. Well, yeah, Jenny said, you have to keep the legs fresh, can't just sit around before a race. The Virin delegation's medical specialist pulled up human biology data, reading it with growing alarm. These creatures, their optimal operating temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. The Kira's 7 course will be 38 degrees. They're going to die of heat exposure. Actually, Marcus Torres interjected from the human delegation box, 38 degrees is quite pleasant. We were hoping it might get a bit warmer. The galactic media's consensus was unanimous. The humans were either insane, suicidal, or had fundamentally misunderstood what a marathon entailed. Betting markets across the galaxy put humanity's chances at 847 to 1 against. Race day. Morning, the Kira's 7 course was designed to be challenging but fair. It wound through desert scrubland, over rocky hills, across a salt flat, and finished in the colonial settlement's main plaza. The route included 3 variable gravity zones, 2 kilometers at 13G, 3 kilometers at 08G, and a brutal final kilometer at 15G. Temperature at the 600 start time, 31 degrees C, projected to reach 38 degrees C by kilometer 30. 127 runners from 53 species lined up at the start. The Viren team had arrived in a gilded transport, each runner's carapace painted with intricate designs denoting their clans and achievements. Jexthal wore the traditional crimson of the reigning champion. The soaring descended from the sky itself, their wing arms extended in a display of aerial superiority before folding into running configuration. The Korthax bounded into position, their 4 arms pumping in synchronized warm-up movements that generated small sonic booms. The Gravath simply walked to the line, each footstep registering on seismic monitors, and the humans jogged in quietly, Jenny and Yuki side by side, already sweating in the morning heat, talking about what they'd had for breakfast. "They're so small," a Korthax runner observed to his teammate. "And soft," agreed another. "Look, no carapace, no scales, no natural armor at all, just exposed skin. I heard they have to cover themselves in artificial materials just to survive temperature variation. Primitives, this will be over quickly." The starting official, a methane-breathing Zixter in an environment suit, raised the plasma torch that would signal the beginning. The crowd fell silent. Billions watched across the galaxy. This was history, the first true multi-species athletic competition, a test of biological superiority conducted in the spirit of friendly rivalry. The torch flared. The gun fired and the aliens exploded off the line like the start of a war. Kilometers 15. The sprint the first kilometer was chaos. Jexthal's 8 legs blurred into motion, each hydraulic limb firing in perfect sequence. He covered the first kilometer in 2 minutes and 17 seconds, a pace that translated to running a full marathon in 1 hour and 37 minutes. Kriya's powerful wing arms drove her forward in a bounding gait that ate up ground. Her hollow bones made each impact nearly soundless. She stayed on Jexthal's heels. The Korthax team moved in a pack, their 4 arms pumping, their digitigrade legs designed for exactly this kind of explosive power. The Gravath rumbled along at what was, for them, a sprint, making the ground shake with each impact. And at the back, settling into what looked like an easy jog, ran the humans. Jenny and Yuki had discussed their strategy extensively. "Let them go," Jenny had said during planning. "Let them burn themselves out, we'll run our race." They crossed the 1 kilometer mark in 4 minutes and 53 seconds, respectable for a human marathon pace, but they were already in 94th place. By kilometer 3, they dropped to 108th. The galactic broadcasters barely mentioned them. "And look at the Viren champion," the lead commentator enthused. "Jexthal is maintaining an extraordinary pace. At this rate, he'll finish in under 1 hour and 40 minutes. The soaring team is equally impressive," another added. "Kriya shows no signs of fatigue. Her hollow bone structure gives her incredible efficiency." A third commentator chimed in. "I'm looking at the human runners. They've now fallen to last place. Honestly, I'm not sure why they bothered to enter. They're moving at what appears to be a leisurely jog." At kilometer 5, Jenny checked her heart rate, 145 beats per minute, comfortable, sustainable. She could hold this pace for hours. She glanced at Yuki, who gave her a small nod. His breathing was even, his stride relaxed. Behind them, the last-place runner, a tentacled Aquirl who struggled with the terrestrial environment, fell further back. Ahead, the alien runners disappeared around a bend in a cloud of dust. "Ready to get started?" Yuki asked with a smile. "Let's give it another 5 kilometers, Jenny replied. "Let them really commit." Kilometer 6:15, the realization at kilometer 8, Jexthal began to notice something wrong. His legs were still moving at top speed, still firing in perfect hydraulic sequence, but something felt off. His internal temperature readout, which should have been stable at 34 degrees C, was climbing. 35 degrees C, 36 degrees C. The Kira's 7 heat was oppressive, worse than he'd anticipated. His carapace, designed to retain heat in the cool, moist environment of his homeworld, was acting like an oven. He pushed harder. champions pushed through discomfort. Kriya was experiencing similar issues. Her hollow bones, perfect for weight reduction, provided almost no thermal mass. The heat was building in her core with nowhere to go. Her species cooled down by standing still and spreading their wing arms to dissipate heat through increased surface area, but she couldn't stop. Not when she was in second place. The Korthax team was starting to spread out. Their massive fast-twitch muscle fibers, capable of incredible bursts of power, generated heat as a byproduct of exertion. At full sprint, a Korthax could maintain their pace for maybe 10 minutes before overheating became critical. They'd been sprinting for almost 20 minutes. At kilometer 10, the first casualties began. A silicate runner, a crystalline species that could sprint at astonishing speeds, suddenly stopped, their body making an alarming cracking sound. Thermal expansion. Their rigid structure couldn't handle the differential heating from exertion and external temperature. Two Korthax runners dropped out, collapsing to their knees, their forearms trembling. Medical drones swarmed in. Jexthal pushed on, but his pace was slowing. His 8 legs, which had been firing in perfect synchronization, were beginning to move independently, each one trying to compensate for the other's increasing dysfunction. At kilometer 12, the galactic broadcasters finally noticed something unusual. "I'm looking at the tracking data," one commentator said slowly, "and the humans, they haven't slowed down at all." "Confirmed," another replied, surprise evident in their translated voice. Jenny Torres and Yuki Tanaka have maintained exactly 4 minutes and 53 seconds per kilometer since the start. No variation. But that's impossible. Every runner slows down. It's basic biology. The camera is finally focused on the human runners. They were still at the back of the pack, but the pack was changing. The spread of runners had stretched from a tight cluster into a long, straggling line. Runners who had exploded off the start line were now walking or collapsed entirely. And Jenny and Yuki were moving through the field like time itself, not because they'd sped up, but because everyone else was slowing down. Their bodies were covered in sweat, glistening in the Kira's 7 sun. To alien eyes, it looked like they were melting. But their breathing was steady, their strides even, their pace metronomic. At kilometer 15, they passed into 45th place. Dr. Kella, the Viren sports scientist, watched from the medical monitoring station with growing horror. "Pull up the human biometrics," she ordered her assistant. The data appeared on the holographic display. Core temperature 37.4 degrees C, barely elevated from baseline. Heart rate 145-150 BPM, steady since kilometer 1. Respiration 32 breaths per minute, elevated but controlled. Hydration status optimal. They were drinking from bottles carried in handheld containers. "This doesn't make sense," Dr. Kella muttered. "They should be dying." She pulled up Jexthal's data for comparison. Core temperature 38.2 degrees C and climbing. Leg synchronization 67% efficiency and dropping. Metabolic stress markers critical levels. "The humans are cooling themselves," her assistant said, pointing to the thermal imaging. "That secretion on their skin, when it evaporates, it creates a heat exchange mechanism. They're using the surrounding air as a heat sink. But the energy cost of producing that secretion is minimal. It's passive, automatic. Their sweat glands activate automatically in response to core temperature elevation. They don't have to think about it." Doctor Kella pulled up more data, her mandibles working in agitation. "Look at their skeletal structure. That tendon attachment point in their lower leg, it's acting as an elastic energy storage system. They're recovering a significant percentage of the kinetic energy from each footfall." "Energy efficiency combined with superior heat management," the assistant said quietly. "They're not running the same race we are. They're running a completely different race." On the course, Jenny crested a hill and saw the leaders ahead for the first time since kilometer 5. They looked terrible. Jexthal was weaving, his 8 legs no longer moving in harmony. Kriya was panting, her beak open, trying to cool down in the one way her species knew how, and losing precious hydration in the process. Jenny and Yuki ran past a Gravath runner who had slowed to a walk, his massive body unable to dump the heat his muscles were generating. "How you doing?" Yuki asked Jenny. "Good, you. Feel like I could go all day." They were at kilometer 16. They still had 26 kilometers to go, and they hadn't even started pushing yet. Kilometers 1625, the hunt. Something shifted in the human runners at kilometer 17. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but the cameras caught it. Their stride lengthened slightly, their breathing deepened. Their pace, which had been metronomically consistent, started to drop. 4 minutes 53 seconds per kilometer became 4 minutes 48 seconds, then 4 minutes 42 seconds. They were speeding up. Are they insane? A commentator asked. You don't accelerate in the middle of a marathon. You save your energy for the end, but Jenny and Yuki weren't thinking in terms of saving energy. They were thinking in terms of hunting. This was the moment, 17 kilometers in, when their ancestors would have realized the antelope was starting to tire. This was when the hunt shifted from following to pursuing. The prey could see the predator now, could understand that it wasn't going to stop, could feel the inevitability of the chase. At kilometer 19, they passed into the top 20. Jexthal heard them coming. He turned his head, his compound eyes trying to focus on the sound of steady footfalls behind him. The humans, still running, still sweating, still coming. He tried to accelerate, but his legs wouldn't respond. His core temperature was 39, 1 degrees C. His species could survive up to 40 degrees C, but at this level, cognitive function began to degrade. Jenny and Yuki ran past him at kilometer 20. Good run, Jenny said as they passed. Jexthal tried to respond, but his translator was malfunctioning from the heat. He managed another 800 meters before his legs simply stopped responding. He collapsed in a controlled shutdown, his body's automatic safety protocols forcing him into emergency cooling mode. Medical drones swarmed in. The 8-time Viren champion was out of the race. Kriya was still moving, but barely. Her hollow bones, perfect for weight reduction, were conducting heat into her core faster than her body could radiate it out. Her species' cooling mechanism, standing still with wing arms spread, was incompatible with sustained exertion. At kilometer 22, she tried to spread her wing arms while moving, lost her balance, and tumbled into the dust. She tried to stand, fell again, and finally accepted defeat. The humans ran past, their shadows long in the afternoon sun. By kilometer 25, only 37 runners remained in the race. Jenny and Yuki were in 4th place, and the leaders, a Methurin runner and 2 Aquarel who had managed their hydration carefully, were starting to look back nervously because the humans were still coming, and they were smiling. Kilometers 26:35, the grind. The middle kilometers of a marathon are where races are lost, not won. It's the grinding section, the long stretch where the initial adrenaline has worn off, the finish line is still far away, and the body starts to ask uncomfortable questions. Questions like, why are we doing this? And can we please stop now? For most species, this was the wall, the point where the body's glycogen stores depleted, where muscle damage accumulated, where heat stress became critical. The Methurin leader, a being named Kelresh, was struggling. His species came from a heavy-gravity water world, and their cooling mechanism was similar to humans. They could evaporate moisture through their skin, but their skin was designed for aquatic environments, not terrestrial ones. In the dry Kira's 7 air, they were losing water faster than they could replace it. At kilometer 28, Kelresh's hydration alarm started chirping. He was at 83% optimal hydration, dangerous territory. Behind him, the 2 Aquarel runners were in even worse shape. Their tentacle-based locomotion was efficient in water but costly on land. Each step required coordinating 16 separate tentacles, and the cognitive load was starting to show. And behind them, closing the gap meter by meter, ran Jenny and Yuki. They were talking. The galactic audience couldn't believe it. Are they having a conversation? A commentator asked in disbelief. Indeed they were. Jenny was telling Yuki about her daughter's first marathon, a short 10K kids race that had taken place 3 months ago. She's 7, Jenny was saying, her breathing barely labored, and she told me afterward, Mama, that was too short. Can I do a longer one? Yuki laughed. Start them young. How long have you been running? Since I could walk. You? About the same. My grandfather was a monk. He used to run between temples as a meditation practice. 50, 60 kilometers a day, as meditation. He said the running quieted the mind, made space for thoughts to settle. They were at kilometer 30, discussing family and philosophy, while around them, the galaxy's finest athletes were collapsing in heat-stressed agony. At kilometer 32, they caught the Aquarel runners. The tentacled beings looked at the humans with something approaching despair. They'd been running for over 2 hours and 40 minutes. Their cognitive capacity for coordinating 16 tentacles was degrading. They were making mistakes, tentacle 7 firing when it should be tentacle 9, causing stumbling, wasting energy. And the humans just ran past, effortlessly, still talking. One of the Aquarels stopped, lowering itself to the ground in a posture of surrender. The other kept going for another kilometer before it, too, accepted defeat. At kilometer 33, only 3 runners remained, Kelresh the Metherin in first place and the 2 humans in second and third. The broadcast drones focused on Kelresh. His skin had gone from healthy green to a concerning gray-green. His hydration alarm was constant now, 71% optimal, entering dangerous territory. He could see the humans behind him, relentless, inevitable, like the tide. At kilometer 34, he made a decision. He stopped at an aid station and drank, really drank, 3 liters of electrolyte solution, trying to bring his hydration back to safe levels. It took him 3 minutes. The humans ran past without stopping. They'd grabbed water bottles from the aid station without breaking stride, drank while running, and discarded the bottles in perfect form. Kelresh tried to accelerate back to pace. His legs wouldn't respond. He'd stopped. The worst thing you can do in a marathon, stop and let the muscles tighten, let the doubt creep in. He managed to start running again, but his pace had dropped to a jog. At kilometer 35, Jenny and Yuki were alone in the lead. Kilometers 36:42, 195, the sprint. There's a phenomenon in human endurance running that alien physiologists found baffling: the finish line acceleration. After running for hours, depleting energy stores, accumulating muscle damage, and pushing through every kind of discomfort, human runners tend to speed up in the final kilometers. It makes no biological sense. Unless you understand that humans aren't just running against the course, they're running against themselves. At kilometer 36, Jenny looked at Yuki. "Want to pick it up?" Yuki grinned. "Thought you'd never ask." Their pace, which had been holding steady at 4 minutes 42 seconds per kilometer, dropped to 4 minutes 20 seconds, then 4 minutes flat, then 3 minutes 45 seconds. The galactic audience watched in stunned silence as the humans, who had already been running for 2 hours and 50 minutes, started sprinting. "This is impossible," Dr. Kella muttered, watching their biometrics. "Their glycogen stores should be depleted. They should be hitting the wall." But human runners had developed something that confused alien physiologists: the ability to metabolize fat for fuel during extended exertion. The wall happened when glycogen depleted, but the human body could switch to fat metabolism, allowing continued exertion. It wasn't as efficient as glycogen. It hurt, but it worked. At kilometer 38, they entered the variable gravity zone, the final test where gravity increased to 1.5 g. Jenny felt the weight slam into her. Every step suddenly required more force, more energy. Her pace slowed, but not much. Because humans had evolved to run in Earth's 1G, their legs were over-engineered for the task. They had strength to spare. At kilometer 40, the finish line came into view. The plaza was packed with spectators from every species, all watching the monitors in disbelief. "The humans are going to win," commentators were saying across 1,000 languages. "The small, weak, primitive humans are going to win." Jenny and Yuki ran side by side through the final kilometer. Neither tried to pull ahead. This wasn't about beating each other. It had never been about that. At kilometer 41, Jenny started laughing. Pure joy, pure exhilaration. The endorphins had kicked in, that runner's high that made everything feel possible. "This is what we're made for," she shouted to Yuki. "This is what we are," he shouted back. At kilometer 42, they could hear the crowd. The roar of thousands of voices, most of them confused, some of them beginning to understand. They crossed into the final 195 meters. The Virin delegation stood in shocked silence. The soaring clutched their wing arms in disbelief. The Korthax, massive and powerful, watched the small bipeds sprint toward the finish line and finally understood. Humans weren't fast, they were unstoppable. Jenny and Yuki crossed the line together, hands clasped, in 2 hours, 47 minutes and 22 seconds. Not a human record pace, not even close. But they'd run conservatively, not knowing what to expect from the course, and they'd won. The aftermath. The medical team swarmed the human runners the moment they crossed the finish line. "Where are the injured?" the lead medical officer demanded, scanners ready. Jenny was bent over, hands on her knees, breathing hard. "What? The injured humans? You collapsed?" "Yes, internal damage, heat stroke." Yuki straightened up, still breathing heavily but grinning. "No, we're good, just need to cool down, maybe some water." The medical officer stared. "You ran for 2 hours and 47 minutes in 38-degree heat. You should be experiencing multi-organ failure." "It was only 38 degrees, Jenny pointed out. "We train in worse." Behind them, the third-place finisher, Kelresh the Metherin, stumbled across the line 43 minutes later. He immediately collapsed and was rushed to medical care. His hydration levels were at 58%. Another few kilometers and he would have experienced renal failure. The fourth-place finisher didn't arrive for another hour and 17 minutes. A Gravath runner who had walked the last 8 kilometers, his massive body simply unable to dump heat fast enough. Of the 127 starters, only 31 finished. The Virin delegation's medical specialist, Dr. Kella, approached the human runners as they were doing their cool-down jog. "You're jogging," she said flatly. "After running a marathon, you're jogging as a cool-down." "Yeah," Jenny said, "helps prevent muscle stiffness. Just a light 3K." Dr. Kella's mandibles worked silently. "I need to understand how." Marcus Torres joined them, his grin threatening to split his face. "Want the long answer or the short answer?" "Both." "Short answer, we're built for this." "Long answer, take a seat, Doc, this is going to take a while." The aftermath, the explanation. The lecture hall on Kira's 7 was packed. Dr. Kella had organized an emergency xenobiology symposium, and every species scientific delegation had sent representatives. Marcus stood at the podium, holographic displays floating around him. "Let's start with the obvious question," he began. "How did the humans win when they're objectively inferior in almost every measurable way?" He pulled up a comparison chart. The Virin are faster, the Soaring have better power-to-weight ratios, the Korthax have more muscle mass, the Gravath have more raw strength, so why did the humans win? He advanced the slide, because evolution is specific. Every species here evolved to solve particular problems in particular ways. The Virin evolved for quick bursts of speed to escape predators on their homeworld. The Soaring evolved for aerial pursuits, the Korthax for rapid climbing in their vertical forest environments. Another slide, humans evolved to hunt. But not the way most predators hunt. We didn't evolve to be faster than our prey, we evolved to be more stubborn. Laughter rippled through the audience. "I'm serious," Marcus continued. "Our ancestors on the African savanna developed a hunting technique called persistence hunting. You pick an animal, let's say an antelope. The antelope can run 95 kilometers per hour. A human tops out at maybe 45 kph, and that's for an Olympic sprinter over short distances. So how did humans catch the antelope? Simple, we jogged after it for hours. The antelope would sprint away and we'd follow at a steady pace. The antelope would rest, we'd keep coming. It would sprint again, we'd keep jogging." He pulled up a thermal imaging comparison. "Here's the key, the antelope can't cool down while running. Most quadrupeds can't, their breathing is locked to their gait. When they gallop, they can only breathe at specific points in their stride. They have to stop to cool down properly. But humans," Marcus gestured to a holographic human skeleton, "our breathing is decoupled from our movement. We can breathe however we want while running, and we have something the antelope doesn't." The image zoomed in on the human skin. 2 to 4 million eccrine sweat glands. We are the sweatiest species on Earth, and possibly the sweatiest species in the galaxy. We can dump heat through evaporative cooling while running at full exertion. The antelope can't, so we just follow it for hours, for days if necessary. Eventually it collapses from heat exhaustion. Dr. Kella raised a manipulator, "But surely this is inefficient." "The energy cost of producing sweat is minimal," Marcus interrupted. "The sweat glands activate automatically in response to core temperature. We don't have to think about it, and the energy cost is trivial compared to the heat management benefit." He advanced to the next slide, a detailed breakdown of human leg biomechanics. "Then there's our spring-loaded legs, see this?" He highlighted the Achilles tendon. "This acts as an elastic energy storage system. When your foot hits the ground, the tendon stretches, storing kinetic energy. When you push off, it releases that energy back into your stride. We recover about 80% of the energy from each footfall. The Virin's hydraulic legs are powerful, but they don't have this elastic storage. Every step costs full price. Over 42 kilometers, that difference is massive." A Gravath scientist rumbled a question. "But what about raw strength? Surely our greater muscle mass generates more heat," Marcus said gently. "And heat is the enemy in endurance athletics. Your massive muscles are incredible for short bursts of power, but over hours of exertion, they become furnaces you can't turn off." He pulled up metabolic comparison charts. "Let's talk about fuel efficiency. Most species here rely primarily on glycogen for energy, quick-burning fuel that depletes in under 2 hours of sustained exertion. Humans can switch to fat metabolism. It's less efficient, it hurts, but it works. We can literally run for days if we have to. There are documented cases," he continued, "of human persistence hunts lasting 8 to 10 hours, of ultramarathon runners covering 100, 200, even 300 kilometers in a single push. The current human record for continuous running is 350 miles, 563 kilometers without stopping. The audience went silent. 563 kilometers, Dr. Keller repeated. That's more than 13 of your marathons in a row without stopping. Yep, took him about 84 hours, but he did it. Because that's what humans do, we don't stop. Marcus advanced to his final slide, a simple image of a human runner silhouetted against a sunset. Every species here evolved to solve the problem of survival in their own way. You evolved speed or strength or claws or armor. Humans. We evolved stubbornness. We evolved the ability to decide that we're going to do something and then just keep doing it, long after it stops making sense, long after everyone else has quit. He looked out at the assembled scientists. You didn't lose today because you're inferior. You lost because you challenged us to our specialty. You challenged the galaxy's persistence predators to a test of persistence, and in that arena, we're unbeatable. The aftermath. The interview 3 hours after the race, Jenny and Yuki sat down for a press conference. They'd showered, eaten, and done a proper cool-down routine. They looked refreshed. Jexthal, who had been cleared from medical care, sat in the audience. His carapace was dull, his movements slow. He looked like he'd aged a decade. The first question came from a soaring journalist. How do you feel? Pretty good, Jenny said, a bit tired. My legs are going to be sore tomorrow. But you ran for almost 3 hours. Yeah, it was a good workout. The journalist's feathers ruffled in confusion. A workout? This was the most prestigious athletic competition in galactic history. Yuki smiled, sure, but it was only 42 kilometers. We train longer than that most weeks. A VRIN reporter stood up. Competitor Tours, competitor Tanaka, I think I speak for everyone when I say we don't understand. You made it look easy. You were talking during the race. You were smiling. How? Jenny considered the question. I think, for most species, running is something you do to escape danger, right? It's a stress response. For humans, it's different. Running is how we think. It's meditation. It's therapy. We run to solve problems, to clear our heads, to feel alive. My ancestors, Yuki added, used to run between temples as a spiritual practice. 50, 60 kilometers a day, every day for years. Not because they had to, because it centered them, made them whole. But the pain, another journalist pressed, the discomfort, how do you push through? We don't push through it, Jenny said. We accept it. Pain is just information. It's your body telling you what's happening. You acknowledge it and keep going. Jexthal stood up, his voice quiet. I need to understand, when did you decide to win? At what point in the race did you commit to taking first place? Jenny and Yuki exchanged a look. Kilometer 0, they said in unison. But you fell to last place. You let everyone pass you. We were running our race, Yuki explained. Not theirs. We knew most of the field would go out too fast, so we ran at the pace we could sustain. We knew if we just kept going, we'd eventually move through the field. But what if you were wrong? Jexthal asked, what if someone else could sustain their pace? Jenny shrugged. Then they would have won and we would have done our best, but we weren't wrong, because we've been doing this for 2 million years. This is what we are. The aftermath. The science continues in the weeks following the marathon. Xenobiology departments across the galaxy became obsessed with human endurance physiology. Dr. Keller published a paper titled Persistence Predation and the Evolution of Extreme Endurance Capacity in Homo sapiens that became the most downloaded scientific document in galactic history. The key findings were startling. Heat management. Humans could maintain core temperature homeostasis during sustained exertion in environments up to 45 degrees C, while most species experienced critical overheating above 35 degrees C during exercise. Fuel flexibility. Humans could switch between glycogen and fat metabolism, allowing them to sustain exertion for 8-12 hours or more without external fuel sources. Most species could manage 1-2 hours maximum. Mechanical efficiency. The human leg's elastic energy storage system provided a 15-20% efficiency advantage over non-elastic locomotion systems in sustained running. Cognitive physical decoupling. Humans could maintain complex cognitive function during sustained physical exertion, allowing them to navigate, plan, and communicate while running. Most species experienced significant cognitive degradation during physical stress. Pain tolerance. Humans demonstrated remarkable ability to continue physical exertion despite pain signals that would force most species to stop. This wasn't biological, it was psychological. Humans had simply decided that pain wasn't a good enough reason to quit. But the most disturbing finding from the alien perspective was this: humans got better with practice. The marathon on Kira's 7 hadn't been at the edge of human capability, it had been a casual training run for the human competitors. With proper preparation, with ideal conditions, with the right motivation, humans could do so much more. The galactic record for sustained running, held by a Korthax champion, was 87 kilometers. The human record was 563 kilometers, and there were humans who, right now, were training to break that record. The aftermath, cultural shift. The marathon changed how the galaxy viewed humanity. Before, humans had been the newcomers, the primitives, the species with no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. The species that had to build tools and machines to survive because they were too weak to survive on their own. After the marathon, the perspective shifted. Humans weren't weak, they were patient, they weren't slow, they were relentless, they weren't fragile, they were terrifyingly durable. A new phrase entered galactic common language: human persistence. It was used to describe someone who refused to give up, who kept going long after any reasonable being would have quit. It wasn't always a compliment. "Don't be so human persistent about this," became a way of telling someone they were being unreasonably stubborn. But sometimes, when the odds were long and the task seemed impossible, someone would say, "We need to be human persistent about this." And everyone would know what they meant: keep going, no matter what, until it's done. The rematch that never happened. 6 months after the Kira's 7 marathon, the Galactic Athletic Council received a formal petition from the Virin delegation. They wanted a rematch. "We were not adequately prepared," Jexthel's petition read. "We did not understand the nature of the challenge. Given proper training in heat management and endurance protocols, we believe we can compete more effectively." The council deliberated for 3 weeks before issuing their response: petition denied. The reasoning was carefully worded, but the subtext was clear. The council had reviewed the biometric data, the comparative physiology, the evolutionary history. They'd consulted with xenobiologists from 30 different species. The conclusion was unanimous: in a marathon-distance endurance event, under heat stress, humanity had an insurmountable biological advantage. It wasn't a fair competition. It was like asking a fish to compete with a bird in a flying competition. The marathon was quietly removed from the list of multi-species athletic events. "It's not that other species can't run marathons," the council's statement read. "It's that humans are specifically designed to run marathons. To compete against them in this arena would be to compete against 2 million years of evolutionary specialization." Jexthel accepted the decision with grace. He'd spent the 6 months since the race studying human evolutionary biology, and he understood now. "We evolved to run from predators," he said in an interview. "Humans evolved to be the predator, the one you can't escape, the one that never stops coming. That's a fundamentally different survival strategy, and it produced a fundamentally different physiology." He paused, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "The terrifying thing, they don't even realize how unusual they are. To them, running 42 kilometers is just normal, something they do for fun, for stress relief. They train for it by running even farther." "What's the lesson here?" the interviewer asked. "Don't challenge humans to endurance competitions, and if you do challenge them, don't be surprised when they smile at you from the finish line while you're dying in medical care." 5 years later, the new events, the Galactic Games, had adapted. Instead of one multi-species marathon, they now had specialized events designed to showcase each species' unique capabilities. The Virin Sprint, 400 meters of pure explosive speed. The Soaring Aerial Course, a 3-dimensional race through a vertical obstacle course. The Korthax Climbing Challenge, a sheer wall race showcasing raw power. The Gravath Strength Trial, moving massive objects across obstacle courses. And the Human Endurance Trial, a 100-kilometer ultramarathon through the desert. No other species even attempted to qualify, but humans showed up to the other events too. They didn't win, they were too slow for the sprint, couldn't fly for the aerial course, didn't have the raw strength for the other challenges. But they competed, they tried, they pushed themselves, and they cheered for the winners with genuine enthusiasm. "That's another thing about humans," Dr. Kellen noted in a retrospective paper. "They don't just compete to win, they compete to test themselves, to see what they're capable of. The winning is secondary to the trying. It's the same persistence instinct," her co-author added. "They see a challenge and they think, I want to see if I can do that, and then they just keep trying until they figure it out." The ultimate test. 7 years after the Kira's 7 marathon, the Galactic Athletic Council announced a new event, the Persistence Trial. It was designed by a multi-species committee with input from xenobiologists, sports scientists, and evolutionary specialists. The rules were simple: start running, don't stop, last one running wins, no predetermined distance. No time limit, no course restrictions beyond staying on the designated planet, just run until you can't run anymore. It was the ultimate test of endurance, the ultimate test of will. 47 species registered competitors. The event lasted 6 days. The last non-human competitor stopped at the 287-kilometer mark, collapsing from exhaustion after 41 hours of sustained movement. The last human runner stopped at the 647-kilometer mark after 94 hours, and only because race officials begged her to stop before she caused permanent damage to herself. She argued with them for 10 minutes before finally accepting a DNF. I could have kept going, she insisted as medical drones carried her away. The terrifying thing was, the biometric data suggested she was right. After the persistence trial, the event was retired permanently. It's not a competition, the council ruled. It's a demonstration of human physiological aberration. No other species can safely compete. The conversation 10 years after the first marathon, Jenny Torres returned to Kira's 7 for the anniversary celebration. She found Jextel at the monument they'd erected at the finish line, a simple marker showing the times of all 31 finishers. "Hello, champion," Jextel said, using the formal greeting. "Hello yourself," Jenny replied. "How have you been?" "Well, I've taken up running, actually." Jenny's eyebrows rose. "Really?" "Nothing serious, just 5 or 10 kilometers in the evening. I find it meditative, calming." "You were right about that." They stood in silence for a moment, looking at the monument. "I'm sorry," Jextel said finally. "For what?" "For underestimating you. For assuming that because you were small and soft, you were weak. For not understanding that strength comes in many forms." Jenny smiled. "You weren't wrong exactly. We are small, we are soft, but we're also stubborn as hell." "That you are?" Jextel's mandibles clicked in amusement. "The galaxy is still trying to understand you, you know. Every month, another paper gets published analyzing some aspect of human physiology or psychology. You're the most studied species in the council. What do they say? That humans are dangerous because you don't know when to quit. That you're simultaneously the most cooperative and most competitive species we've encountered. That you can be incredibly kind and incredibly cruel, often to achieve the same goal. Sounds about right. The latest theory," Jextel continued, "is that your persistence hunting strategy didn't just shape your bodies. It shaped your minds, your cultures, your entire way of thinking. You approach everything like a persistence hunt. Identify the goal, start moving toward it, and don't stop until you get there." Jenny considered this. "That's actually pretty accurate. We set absurd goals and then just chip away at them. Put a human on the moon, map the human genome, run 100 miles. We decide it's possible, and then we just keep working at it until it's done." "It's terrifying," Jextel said quietly, "and magnificent." They stood together, human and Virin, looking out over the course where they'd raced a decade ago. "Want to go for a run?" Jenny asked. "Just a light 10K for old time's sake." Jextel's 8 legs shifted nervously. "I'm not sure I can keep up with you." "That's okay, I'll go slow, we'll run together." And they did, the former champion and the alien who had learned to appreciate what she represented, running through the Kira's 7 desert, not racing, just moving forward together. Behind them, the monument gleamed in the fading light, a reminder of the day the galaxy learned what humans were made for. Epilogue, the message 20 years after the first marathon, a new species made contact with the Galactic Council. The Ithrians were a warrior culture, proud and aggressive. They had conquered their entire star system through military might and saw themselves as the galaxy's natural apex predators. During the first diplomatic meeting, their commander made a challenge. "We hear you have athletic competitions, contests of strength and skill. We wish to participate." To show the galaxy what true physical superiority looks like, the Council's representative, a human ambassador Marcus Torres, smiled politely. "Of course, we have many events, sprints, climbing challenges, strength trials, which interests you." "All of them," the commander declared. "We will dominate in every category." "Wonderful. There's just one more event you might be interested in." Marcus pulled up the historical records of the Kira's 7 marathon. "We used to have a distance running competition, 195 kilometers. Would you like to try?" The Ithrian commander watched the footage of Jenny and Yuki crossing the finish line, then the footage of Jextel collapsing, of Kriya falling, of the other species' failures. "What happened here?" he demanded. Humans ran a marathon against the galaxy's best athletes and won. This proves nothing. Running is for prey animals. Warriors don't run, they fight. Marcus nodded slowly. I see. Well, if you change your mind, let us know. The course is still there. We maintain it as a historical site. The commander sneered. We will not waste our time on such a pathetic display. After the Ithrians left, Marcus sat back in his chair, a slight smile on his face. They'll learn, his assistant said. Eventually, Marcus agreed. They all do. The hard way or the easy way, but they all learn the same lesson. Which is, Marcus pulled up a quote from an ancient Earth philosopher and displayed it on the screen. It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. He closed the file and stood up. The galaxy keeps forgetting that humans aren't impressive because we're strong. We're impressive because we don't quit, because we decided millions of years ago that we would rather die trying than stop trying. He walked to the window, looking out at the stars. They can have their speed and their strength and their claws. We'll take the long game, because in the long game, the one who wins is the one who's still moving when everyone else has stopped. And that's always been us. Final note, the human philosophy in the centuries that followed first contact, human culture spread throughout the galaxy. Not through conquest or colonization, but through a simple idea that other species found simultaneously baffling and inspiring. The belief that anyone, regardless of their starting point, could achieve extraordinary things through persistent effort. Humans called it many things: grit, determination, stubbornness. The refusal to accept that impossible meant impossible. They spread this idea not through preaching, but through demonstration. Human athletes competed in every event, even ones they had no biological advantage in. They lost most of them, but they kept showing up. Human scientists tackled problems that other species had abandoned as unsolvable. Sometimes they failed, but they kept trying. Human explorers ventured into regions of space others had deemed too dangerous. Sometimes they didn't come back, but others followed. And slowly, the galaxy began to understand what made humans different. It wasn't their bodies, though those were remarkable in their own way. It wasn't their technology, though they were innovative. It was their fundamental belief that if you want something badly enough and you're willing to keep working at it long enough, you can make it happen. Even if it takes generations, even if it takes millennia. Even if everyone else says it's impossible, you just have to be willing to keep running, because that's what humans do. They run, and they don't stop. The end asterisk, the human didn't win because they were faster. They won because when I stopped running, they were still running. When I couldn't run anymore, they were still running. When I was in medical care, they were still running. They won because they simply refused to stop. Jexthal of the Virin, Memoirs of an Athlete. I asked a human once why they run these absurd distances. Why they push themselves to the point of pain and exhaustion. They said, because the finish line is there and I'm here, and somewhere between here and there, I'll find out who I really am. I didn't understand at the time. I do now. Humans don't run to escape. They run to discover. Dr. Kella, Understanding Human Persistence, a xenobiological perspective. My grandfather told me about the first marathon, about how the humans won when everyone said they would lose, about how they kept running when everyone else had stopped. He said it taught the galaxy an important lesson: never bet against someone who doesn't know how to quit. I asked him if there was anything humans couldn't do through sheer persistence. He thought for a long time, then said, probably, but they haven't found it yet. Student Essay, Galactic Academy, 2187.